Ladies and gentlemen, sons and daughters of the Most High, listen closely. You are standing on the edge of a miracle, not a maybe, not a wish, not a possibility. A miracle that God has already marked with your name on it. A miracle designed to restore what the enemy stole, repair what life broke, and return what you thought was gone forever. Because when God steps into your situation, he doesn't come to negotiate with your pain. He comes to overturn it. He doesn't need years to fix what was broken in years. He can restore in moments what was lost in seasons. You thought it was over. You looked at the ruins of what once was, your dreams, your relationships, your finances, your confidence, and the enemy whispered, "This is it." He told you that you failed too hard, waited too long, trusted too deeply, and now there's nothing left. But let me declare this with boldness and fire. What you lost was not the end. It was the setup for something supernatural. Sometimes God allows what we built to fall, not because he's punishing us, but because he's positioning us. He'll let certain things collapse so he can construct something greater on a foundation that cannot be shaken. Don't be deceived by what you see. Destruction doesn't always mean defeat. It often means destiny is being recalibrated. And when God sets you up, it rarely looks like promotion. It often looks like pain. Let's be real, the pain was real. The sleepless nights were real. The silence from heaven felt unbearable. The questions in your soul grew louder than your faith. You wondered if God forgot about you, if your prayers hit a ceiling, if your purpose had passed you by. But in the midst of the storm, God was working in stealth mode. He was weaving the pieces of your brokenness into the tapestry of a greater purpose. He doesn't waste wounds. He doesn't abandon his promises. And he certainly doesn't allow loss without a plan for restoration. If the enemy could have destroyed you, you wouldn't be reading this right now. The mere fact that you're still here, still breathing, still searching, still hoping is evidence that God's setup is in motion. Ask Joseph if his pit was punishment. Ask Ruth if losing her husband was the end of her story. Ask Job if everything he lost meant God was done with him. No, every loss was a seed for something greater. Every tear watered the soil of a miracle. Every closed door redirected their steps into divine destiny. You see, what the enemy meant for evil, God will use for elevation. The loss wasn't your final chapter. It was the tension in the plot that makes your testimony powerful. And the thing about a plot twist is this: you never see it coming until the story flips in your favor. That's what God is setting you up for. A radical reversal that will silence every lie spoken over your life. Maybe you've been stuck replaying the past, thinking if you could have prayed harder, loved deeper, or held on tighter, the outcome would have changed. But hear this: you did not miss your miracle. You did not forfeit your favor. You did not disqualify your destiny. If it left your life, God has something better on the way. In God's economy, loss always precedes multiplication. Before the 5,000 were fed, the loaves had to be surrendered. Before Lazarus came out, he had to be wrapped in grave clothes. Before the resurrection, there was a cross. So if you've been through a season of loss, you're in prime position for a miracle. The setup doesn't always come with applause. It doesn't always feel holy. Sometimes it looks like rejection, betrayal, loss, and confusion. But don't be fooled. What looks like a breakdown is often the blueprint for breakthrough. God is too strategic to let anything you've gone through be wasted. Every disappointment is a divine ingredient in your destiny. Every setback is actually a setup for a comeback. Every delay is God aligning your future with his perfect plan. So when you think about what you have lost, whether time, people, money, opportunities, or hope, don't just grieve it. Look again. God is not done. He steps setting the stage for a return so powerful, so undeniable, that even those who doubted you will have to say, surely the Lord has done this. There are moments in life when everything feels stuck. You pray, you fast, you cry, you serve, and still it seems like nothing is moving. It feels like the heavens are silent and your faith is hitting a wall. The enemy wants you to believe that it's always going to be this way, that the pain is permanent, the silence is final, and the delay means denial. But let me grab your spirit by the shoulders and shake it awake. God specializes in sudden turnarounds. You might feel like you're in a season of pause, but that doesn't mean God has pressed stop. Heaven's timing doesn't run on your watch. While you're pacing the floor at night, wondering if anything is shifting, God is working in realms you cannot see, aligning people, positioning resources, preparing hearts, and opening doors that no man can shut. The Bible is full of suddenlies. In Acts 2, they were gathered in one place, and suddenly there came a sound from heaven. Paul and Silas were locked in prison, and suddenly the ground began to shake. One moment you're waiting, worshiping, wondering, and the next God steps into your situation and flips the entire script. Don't mistake the quiet for the absence of movement. When a seed is planted, the most important growth happens underground, invisible to the eye. God is underground in your life right now, doing the deep work before he brings the visible breakthrough. And when he brings it fast. You don't serve a God who needs years to restore years. He's the kind of God who can do in a single moment what would take man a lifetime to accomplish. You may have been overlooked, rejected, misunderstood, or even betrayed, but that has nothing to do with what God is about to release in your life. His power is not bound by your timeline. In fact, he's about to do something so sudden, so unexplainable, it'll make people question how it happened and why it happened to you. That's how favor works. It's not fair, it's not earned, it's just God doing what only he can do. You've been asking, when God? And he's been answering, wait. But not because he's cruel, because he's aligning the right miracle to hit at the right moment. If it had happened earlier, it would have been out of season. If it came sooner, you might have settled for less. But God's timing is always perfect. And when he moves suddenly, completely, and undeniably. You're not forgotten. You're being preserved. You're not stuck. You're being held in divine suspension until the fullness of God's plan meets the readiness of your heart. The frustration you feel is often the signal that breakthrough is near. The more intense the pressure, the closer you are to the release. Don't lose hope in the middle of the waiting. Don't settle for average when you were called to abundance. Don't let delay make you doubt the very thing God promised you. God suddenly is worth the wait. One day of favor can cancel 10 years of labor. One divine connection can redeem a lifetime of disappointment. One miracle can turn your whole life around. Keep your spirit on alert. Keep your faith engaged. Because when your suddenly comes, it won't knock politely. It will break in and rearrange everything. God isn't trying to improve your life. He's about to transform it. He's not giving you a bandage. He's releasing a full-blown supernatural recovery. And when it happens, you won't have time to explain it. You'll just lift your hands and say, only God. You've been praying, fasting, believing, declaring, and yet the answer still hasn't shown up. The door remains shut. The opportunity hasn't come. The healing hasn't manifested. And somewhere deep inside, the enemy tries to plant a lie. If God was going to do it, he would have done it by now. But let me pull back the curtain on the truth. Delay is not denial, it's divine preparation. You see, what you're calling a delay, God is calling a setup. You think it's taken too long, but God is saying, I'm getting things ready that you can't even see yet. While you're staring at the clock, God is setting the stage. He's lining up people who will bless you, arranging circumstances to work in your favor, and preparing your character to carry the weight of what you've been praying for. We often want the promise without the process, but God is more committed to your development than your comfort. Because if he gives it too soon, it might crush you instead of bless you. You're asking for the palace, but he's teaching you in the prison. You're asking for increase, but he's building integrity. You're asking for the spotlight, but he's developing your spirit in the shadows. Don't confuse divine timing with divine silence. Just because God hasn't said yes yet doesn't mean he said no. He may just be saying not yet. And the not yet is not a punishment, it's protection. If you saw the whole picture, you'd thank him for every door he didn't open, every relationship he blocked, every delay that kept you from stepping into something unprepared. Think about Moses. He waited 40 years before stepping into his divine calling. Think about David. He was anointed king, but went back to tending sheep before ever touching the throne. Think about Jesus. He waited 30 years before stepping into public ministry. Delay is not a mistake. It's a molding ground. It's the sacred space where God shapes what man can't see. In the delay, he's stretching your faith. In the delay, he's deepening your roots. In the delay, he's detoxing your heart from pride, fear, insecurity, and doubt. And sometimes what feels like waiting on God is really God waiting on you to grow into the version of yourself that can carry the blessing without it crushing your identity. It's easy to want the miracle without the maturity, but God loves you too much to give you something that will break you. He's not in the business of handing out blessings that become burdens. That's why preparation is a gift, not a curse. It may feel like he's holding you back, but he's actually holding you together. He's building a foundation that can carry what's next without cracking under pressure. The delay is building your endurance. It's forming patience in you. It's teaching you how to walk by faith and not by sight. It's reminding you that even when nothing looks different, God is still faithful. He's still working. He's still moving. He's still aligning everything according to his perfect plan and precise timing. You've got to stop measuring your future by your current frustration. Stop letting time convince you that God has forgotten. He hasn't forgotten. You are in his hands. And the longer the preparation, the greater the promotion. Some of the greatest moves of God come after a long period of silence, because what he's preparing is greater than what you prayed for. When God delays something, he's not taking it from you. He's tailoring it for you. He's preparing you, positioning you, and protecting you from settling for something that's beneath his plan for your life. You've cried over what you lost. You've grieved silently while still showing up for life. You've replayed moments in your head, wondering how things would have been different if they hadn't walked away, if the door hadn't shut, if the opportunity hadn't slipped through your fingers. But what if I told you that God is not just going to give it back, he's going to give it back with interest. You're not just waiting for restoration, you're waiting for compensation. When God restores, he doesn't restore to the level it was before. He restores beyond. He restores better. He restores multiplied. God is not in the business of returning things the same way they left. He redeems time. He upgrades value. He increases what was lost. That's why the enemy is nervous, because he knows he didn't just mess with what you had. He triggered what God is about to release in multiplied measure. You see, when you walk with God, nothing is ever truly lost. It may leave your hands, but it never leaves his sight. God keeps track of every tear, every betrayal, every closed door, every year you thought was wasted, and he has a divine equation for it. Loss plus faith equals supernatural increase. That's why you can't afford to quit. The enemy wants you to stop praying, stop praising, stop believing, because he knows God doesn't just settle the score, He flips it in your favor. Job lost everything, his wealth, his family, his health, but God restored him double for his trouble. That wasn't luck. That was the principle of divine recompense. God doesn't owe anyone anything, but when he chooses to restore, he does it in a way that announces to the world, "This is my child, and I make all things new with increase." You didn't go through that pain for nothing. That loss wasn't empty. God is too just to overlook your suffering. He's not a silent observer of your life. He's the divine Redeemer who watches closely and responds precisely. And when he restores, it won't be random or small. It will be measured by everything you thought you'd never see again. Think about the years you felt overlooked, the dreams that felt delayed, the seasons where you poured your heart into people who didn't value you. God is going to bring it back, not just in the same form, but compounded with interest. That relationship that broke you, he's sending one that builds you. That job you lost, he's opening doors to purpose you never imagined. That dream that seemed buried, he's resurrecting it with power, clarity, and divine favor. This is not about karma. This is about covenant. You are in relationship with the one who owns everything. And when he moves, he restores, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. You don't serve a God of leftovers. You serve a God of overflow. And what's coming won't just replace what was lost. It will redefine what restoration looks like in your life. There are blessings being prepared right now that are in direct response to what you endured. There are miracles with your name on them that carry the weight of your past pain, multiplied into divine purpose. God didn't allow you to go through the loss just to return things the same. He's adding favor to your healing. He's adding purpose to your recovery. He's adding influence to your restoration. This is not compensation from man. This is divine restitution. Heaven has calculated what the enemy stole, delayed, blocked, and corrupted, and God's about to pay it back with heavenly interest. That's why the waiting has been intense. That's why the warfare has been real, because the return is going to be undeniable, uncontainable, and unstoppable. It's easy to look at what you've lost and assume that your best days are behind you. It's tempting to believe the whispers that say you'll never feel joy like that again, never walk in that kind of favor again, never love or laugh or dream like you used to. But let me break every lie the enemy has spoken over your future. What's coming is greater than what's been. The glory ahead of you will outweigh the pain behind you. The next season is not a recovery mission, it's a divine upgrade. God never moves backward. He's not recycling your past, he's rewriting your future. You're not being returned to what once was. You're being launched into what's never been. The reason the warfare has been so heavy, the waiting so long, the pressure so intense, is because what's coming carries a greater weight of glory than anything you've ever experienced. And the enemy doesn't fight what's behind you. He fights what's ahead of you. Sometimes God has to shut a chapter completely so you stop rereading it. He'll allow certain things to end, not because he's cruel, but because he knows the next part of the story can't begin until you turn the page. It's human nature to cling to what's familiar, even if it's broken. But God is not in the business of patching up what's already dead. He's the God of resurrection, but only when you let the old be buried. The reason it hurts so bad when things fall apart is because we often don't realize that God is making room. He's not subtracting. He's clearing space. That relationship that ended, it was blocking the one he's sending. That opportunity that passed you by, it wasn't big enough for what he's about to do in you. That door that slammed shut, it was too small to carry the weight of your calling. You're not stuck. You're not forgotten. You're not overlooked. You're in transition. You're in the middle of the holy tension between what was and what will be. And that space, as uncomfortable as it is where God does his greatest work. It's where he transforms identity, clarifies purpose, and strengthens vision. He's not trying to get you back to where you were. He's taking you to a place your past couldn't even imagine. The enemy wants you focused on yesterday so you miss what's forming in the spirit today. But God is whispering, lift your head, look forward, there's more. More peace, more joy, more impact, more anointing, more wisdom, more alignment. What's ahead of you has been crafted in the secret chambers of heaven for a moment such as this. And when it's revealed, it's not going to look like a repeat. It's going to look like a reintroduction. People will wonder how you came out of that storm stronger, how you lost so much, but still rose, how you suffered deeply, but now stand in power. They won't recognize you, because what God is about to do in you will outshine everything you've been through. This is not restoration to the old version of you. This is revelation of the healed, whole, elevated version of who you were always destined to become. The best part, you haven't even seen it yet. No eye has seen, no ear has heard, and no heart has imagined what God has prepared for you. That's not poetic. That's prophetic. You haven't missed it. You haven't messed it up. You haven't fallen too far. You are right on schedule for the divine unveiling of what's been hidden in the wings, waiting for its appointed time. You don't need a time machine to reclaim your best days, because your best days didn't get left behind. They're waiting up ahead in a future that's already dripping with God's favor, saturated in his presence, and marked by his fingerprints. Faith doesn't wait for proof. It acts on a promise. And if there's one thing that heaven responds to with fire and favor, it's bold, expectant faith. Not weak, wavering, fingers crossed hope. Not passive, pitiful, maybe someday faith. But the kind of faith that praises before the answer, moves before the door opens, and declares victory while still standing in the valley. That kind of faith moves heaven. That kind of faith pulls miracles out of the invisible and into the now. You've got to get this deep in your spirit. Miracles follow movement. God didn't tell the Israelites to wait for the Red Sea to split before stepping forward. He told Moses to stretch out his hand. He didn't wait for the walls of Jericho to crumble before instructing the people to shout. They shouted while the walls were still standing. That's not reaction. That's faith. And that's what opens the gates of breakthrough. Faith that sees results is not silent. It's not afraid. It doesn't wait to feel ready. It dares to act on what God said, even when everything around it says otherwise. And that's where miracles are born, in the space where human limitation collides with divine expectation. When you believe like it's already done, speak like it's already yours, and prepare like it's already on the way, you activate a dimension of heaven that doesn't respond to passivity, only to boldness. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to believe that God is who he says he is, and that he's faithful to do what he said he would do. Miracles don't require perfection, they require pursuit. They don't show up for those who sit in fear. They chase down those who step out in faith. You want to see God move? Then move. You want the windows of heaven to open? Then open your mouth with praise. You want supernatural provision? Then sow even when it doesn't make sense. Faith isn't logical. It's spiritual obedience wrapped in raw trust. Too many people are waiting on a sign to start moving, when God is waiting on them to start believing. We say, God, show me and I'll move. But God is saying, move and I'll show you. The blessing is often on the other side of obedience. The miracle is on the other side of the risk. You can't play it safe and walk in the fullness of your calling. Playing it safe never split seas, healed the blind, or raised the dead. Only bold, mountain-moving faith makes the impossible possible. That's why hell tries so hard to shake your belief. Because the enemy knows he can't stop God, but he'll do everything to stop your faith. If he can make you doubt, hesitate, or second guess, he can delay what heaven wants to release. But if you wake up and stir your spirit to believe again, If you silence the noise of fear and doubt with the sound of praise, you shift the atmosphere around you. You create an opening for the supernatural to invade your reality. You were never meant to live according to what you see. You were meant to live by what he said. And when you take him at his word, even before the evidence shows up, you step into a realm where miracles become your norm, not your exception. It's not about how big the problem is, it's about how bold your belief is. You've been praying for a miracle, but maybe the miracle has been waiting on you to pray with faith. You've been asking God to show up, but maybe he's been waiting for you to show out in faith. Don't wait for everything to look right before you believe. Praise in the middle of the mess. Prepare while it's still unclear. Speak life while it still looks dead. Because the size of your miracle will often match the size of your faith. And when you dare to believe big, you give God the room to move big. Room to move big. Room to move big. Room to move